Hello, and welcome to another episode from the Secretly Society. East River Pipe, the recording alias of F.M. Cornog of Astoria, Queens, began in 1989. Using his trusty Tascam 4-track at home in his apartment, his second album for Merge Records, Mel, came out in 1996. Listening to it today is as fresh, vital, and quite awe-inspiring as it was 30 years ago, and it's no surprise to find that the New York Times called him the Brian Wilson of home recording. This episode is narrated by Cornog's partner, Barabara Powers, who released some of the initial East River Pipe music on her own label, Hellgate Productions. We asked Barbara to reflect on East River Pipe in anticipation of the Secretly Society exclusive reissue of this classic album, Mel. Enjoy!
When Mac McCon first asked us about writing something for this new release of Mel, we had to ask ourselves what we could really add to all that has already been said and written about East River Pipe and F.M. Cornog. FM and I decided the best way to give meaning to this new space would be for me to tell the story from the point of view that only we could have since we were the ones who lived it. The story of East River Pipe is ultimately the story of two people, FM and me, who against the most unforgiving odds happen to find one another, survive early perilous years together, and go on to create something tangible out of a shared vision of what art is and what art can do. The first time I heard East River Pipe was on a Sony Walkman in early 1986, standing in a bar in New York City. Fully expecting it to be mediocre, I was astounded to hear that it was extraordinary. The songs would have been FM's earliest songs recorded on a Tascam Portastudio 4-track cassette recorder. There was no drum machine, no drums, no keyboards, just FM playing guitar and singing songs that took my breath away. It would be months before I met FM. I knew his music before I knew him. When we finally met in late 1986 at a practice space on 14th Street called Giant Studios, FM had run out of places to stay. He'd already been drinking heavily, taking random drugs, and dealing with mental illness for years, alienating nearly everyone in his life. If he had a few dollars, he would get a room at the Hotel Victor, a dingy and dilapidated SRO in Hoboken, New Jersey. And when he didn't have a few dollars, which was most of the time, the Hoboken train station became his home. During a bitterly cold February of the following year, FM came to stay with me in Astoria, Queens, at the apartment we would end up sharing for the next 10 years. Our initial overlap was music. FM remembers the first time he came to my apartment, seeing the biggest record collection of any woman he had ever met, and recognizing that we had something important in common. And while I didn't consider myself to be particularly creative, I believed I could recognize creativity in others. Embarrassing as it sounds now, at the time, I remember writing, "I have found in FM my poet," and I felt in my heart it was true. Our early years together were grueling. The recurring themes of drug abuse, hopelessness, and self-destruction in East River Pipe songs were our reality. The line in the song Drug Life, "If it comes down to the drugs or you, baby we're through," was us. It made no difference to FM at that time if he lived or died. If I was late coming home from work, I'd get to our building and see that the shades were drawn down and the lights were off, and I knew that meant that FM was gone. Gone again on a binge that would last for days or weeks. Day after day of drinking and drug taking, no eating, maybe coming home at night, maybe not. One night, the week after FM moved in, he left his only guitar on a subway because he was too far gone to remember it. It felt to me like we were already failing. When the drinking would finally wind down, FM would claw his way back to level ground. He'd be okay for a couple of weeks, maybe a little longer, but I was always waiting for the next time I would come home and see the shades drawn down and feel my heart sink. I asked myself at the time what was wrong with me, that I was choosing to share my home and my life with someone so committed to self-annihilation. But I would look at my life. I had a job. I paid my bills. I had a deep and supportive relationship with my family. And I decided I was okay. As dark as those days were, I believed in FM. I believed he didn't want to be in the spiral he was in. He felt more disgust for himself after each binge than I ever could. And even when he was drinking, he was always neat, he was always gentle, he was always kind. And I believed in his art. From the moment I heard those first songs, I was driven to get East River Pipe's music out to the world. It felt essential to me that FM's music be heard and validated while he was still alive to experience it. And because it felt likely nearly every day that he might not be alive for long, I felt an urgency to make things happen quickly. Every time he disappeared, I wondered if this was the time he would fall in front of a subway train or freeze to death in a snowbank. What sustained me during those long, early years, though, was his music. It always came back to the music. When he was gone, I'd come home from work, put on my headphones, and listen to his songs. His words and his voice felt so true and so real that it reinforced the resolve in me again and again. Anytime I felt stuck, I would return to the music. The answer was always in the music.
Club isn't open, that was a lie. Incestuous boys groups satisfied.
Little by little, over the next 8 years, FM drank less often. At one point, I tracked his days of drinking on our kitchen wall calendar with large black X's. Initially out of frustration and anger, but eventually as a way of tracking FM's progress. At the end of a year, I'd tally up the X's, and each year there were fewer X's than the year before. And then one year, there were none. That final X represented what we now refer to as the Poor Frickie record release party in May of 1995 that ended with FM unconscious on our kitchen floor and being taken away in an ambulance to the emergency room. I overheard the EMTs chuckling about bets they'd made on the way over about this guy they were picking up, and was he going to be alive or dead when they arrived at the apartment.
Come on, liquor, make it quick. Kill the action for me. Kill the action for me. Think of nothing, that's the trick. Kill the action for me. Kill the action for me now. Meet you later on the flame. Kill the action for me. Kill the action for me. We don't even know our names. Kill the action for me. Kill the action for me now. Kill the action for me. Kill the action for me now. Kill the action for me. Kill the action for me now.
All through those early years, remarkably, FM continued to write songs and record them. He had brought his 4-track Porta studio to our apartment and sold his amp in order to buy a guitar to replace the one he had lost. One Saturday, FM and I happened upon a used 8-track reel-to-reel mini-studio at Sam Ash on 48th Street, and I couldn't get it out of my head. We went back in on the following Monday and bought it, and that was the beginning of taking ourselves seriously. FM kept writing songs, and I started my little label called Hellgate, named for the bridge we lived next to. We bought a couple more pieces of equipment, a keyboard, and a reel-to-reel tape recorder to mix down to. We used photographs I took and a Xerox machine to make our cover art. We bought 100 blank cassettes and made copies one by one at home. And finally, at the New Music Seminar in 1989, I handed out our first release, East River Pipe, East River Pipe, a 3-song cassette on my tiny Hellgate label. 2 more cassettes, Point of Memory and I Used to Be Kid Colgate, followed.
us in the spotlight, caught us with our pants so low. We thought that we were pretending, so now I gotta let you go. Gotta let you go. Gotta let you go. Gotta let you go. They caught us in the spotlight, but you didn't really care. The shame is never ending. Yeah, baby, let's get somewhere. Gotta get somewhere. Gotta get somewhere. Gotta get somewhere.
The cassette culture and DIY fanzines were thriving when we started out. A home-recorded cassette with a Xeroxed cover was considered a legitimate release. It was thrilling to see a review of one of the publications you might find at See Here, a store on Manhattan's Lower East Side that sold fanzines and really was at the center of underground expression. When we learned that East River Pipe had made it into the Magnificent Seven, music critic Jim Santo's annual roundup of the year's very best indie cassette releases, we were overjoyed. Axel Arigi, Hellgate's first 7-inch single, came out shortly after. Hearing those first few notes float off that record is something I will never forget. We followed up with 4 more Hellgate singles over the next few years, and they became our ticket to the next level. The singles made it possible for us to get radio play and to get into record stores. We'd pack up records by the hundreds, cutting out and folding up our Xeroxed covers and stuffing them into plastic sleeves, one at a time, for days and days, and mail them off to college radio stations and magazines. We'd summon up all of our courage and venture into indie record stores like Pier Platters, Kim's Underground, or Adult Crash, where I'd do my very best to persuade them to take 2 or 3 copies of the records on consignment. When we'd go back a week or 2 later to find that all the records had been sold and they wanted more, it felt like anything was possible. The singles meant we could be considered for inclusion in the Ajax catalog, Tim Adams' highly respected mail-order catalog for indie music, and were honored when he said we were in. The singles made it possible for Tom Prendergast at Pier Platters to ask us if we'd ever heard of Sarah Records in England and suggest that we send them a few copies, which led to the world-changing, for us, jump to Sarah Records in England, to Ajax Records out of Chicago, and finally to our longtime home on Merge. We were fueled by each of these victories. Each success delighted and astonished us and paved the way for another one. The kind and generous people who took those early leaps on East River Pipe kept us going. They felt like cheerleaders riding alongside us saying, "Yes, keep going, keep going." The East River Pipe story could only have gone the way it went. my drive to get East River pipe music out to the world was dwarfed by FM's own utter indifference to wider success. Even I underestimated the depth of his disinterest in anything beyond writing his songs and recording them. Again and again, FM was offered opportunities to gain more ground, to collaborate with other musicians, to work with respected producers, to attend important parties, to take all expenses-paid trips to other countries to sit on music panels, to have a documentary film made about East River Pipe, to sign record deals with major labels. And the answer was always no, if it meant FM having to compromise his art or himself in any way. He was simply incapable of moving off of his mark. His sense of what was true and right for him was immovable. And his psyche was, and still is, too fragile to step beyond his known terrain. He is a songwriter who only records at home on outmoded equipment, doesn't collaborate, doesn't play live, cannot tour, and recoils from commercial ambition. For FM, it has never been about fame. It was just about being able to do his work. If he could make a meager living, or maybe have someone cover one of his songs, that would be enough. He just wanted to be able to keep working. The partnerships FM did say yes to worked because nothing was demanded of him beyond staying at home to work on his songs. FM and I sometimes wonder if we could have accomplished more, but we've come to recognize that it couldn't have been possible given who we are. If I'd been more of a go-getter who knew how to network and wasn't afraid to ask people for things, we might have gotten further. But FM wouldn't have wanted to be with me. It might have helped if FM were more ambitious or sociable or better adjusted, but then he couldn't have written these songs. FM's songs are who he really is. East River Pipe is not a fabricated persona or a publicity contrivance. It is real. Listening to East River Pipe will tell you why things could only have gone as they did.
Guilty as charged, the only ending that could ever be. I stand alone, guilty as charged. I played with fire, the only way to change it is to kill the truth.
The vision we shared when we started out was naive. We truly believed that if the art was good enough, it would push through every obstacle and rise to the top. But of course we learned in time that this was not true. Even superlative art is not enough. To be successful, an artist must be willing to tour and play live, to do interviews, to pose for pictures, to shake hands with influential people, to collaborate with others, to show up where and when they are summoned. Offers that would be welcome and exciting for someone eager to comply. But FM simply could not comply. We had FM's creativity. We had my faith. We had unrelenting effort, year after year. We had the support and encouragement of a small group of treasured people. And we had the songs. We had the music. We did get East River Pipe music out to at least a small sliver of the world. So I guess you could say that my dream did come true. Barabara Powers, 2025.
You've been listening to Barabara Powers, reflecting on her time with FM Cornog and East River Pipe. You can find a link to all the music you've heard in the show notes. And please check back in the Secretly Society podcast archive for shows about Songs of Hire, Big Red Machine, Jens Lekman, 90 Day Men, and more. And you can check our ongoing series, Secretly Frequencies, where we meet labels and artists from the Secretly family and hear the untold stories behind their musical history. The Secretly Society podcast is an original production of the Secretly Group. The project manager for the Secretly Society podcast is Coco Segala. Robbie Morris is the creative director. Look out for more from the Secretly Society wherever you get your podcasts.